our KKG chairman and Cotton King, Om Prakash ji. I request him to please welcome all.
गौतम जी सुनाई दे रहा है?
Yes, yes. Please.
जय जिनेंद्र टू ऑल। आज के ये वेबिनार के लिए मैं हमारे सबसे सीनियर पार्टी जो गेस्ट है दिलीप जी चांडक जी, प्रतीक ओस्तवाल और गौरव राठौड़, आप तीनों का मैं जोन और जीतो की तरफ से बहुत ही हार्दिक स्वागत करता हूं। और मुझे पूरा भरोसा है कि आपके साथ ये वेबिनार का फायदा पूरे पार्टिसिपेंट को जरूर होगा। इसके साथ ही जितने भी अपने इंटरनेशनल और नेशनल पार्टिसिपेंट है उनका भी मैं बहुत ही हार्दिक स्वागत करता हूं। थैंक यू वेरी मच। गौतम जी कंटिन्यू।
Thank you. We have a Dilip Doshi ji from USA. He is a founder and CEO of Protocol Link, consultant for USA FDA regulator, having client in 33 countries, Secretary General of JITO USA, and now helping us to start Chicago. We welcome you all and request you to please introduce today's guests, Gaurav and Dilip ji. I can't hear you. Deepak bhai, unmute yourself.
Okay, there you go. Jai Jindra.
Jai Jindra.
Greetings, everyone. So I'm Deepak Doshi from Chicago, and thank you for giving me the opportunity and the platform today. It's my pleasure and a privilege to introduce a couple of our distinguished guest speakers. Each of these speakers, in my opinion, they share a few common things. They believed in what they did. They invested their sweat equity in doing what they did, and they are building on their success to make it significant. So without any further ado, let me begin and please join me in welcoming Mr. Dilip Chandak, one of our speakers today. Mr. Dilip Chandak is a managing director of Vega Helmets, based out of Belgaum, Karnataka. Mr. Chandak completed his schooling from St. Xavier's School and earned his bachelor's in commerce from KLS Gokte College of Commerce in Belgaum. Born in Sangli, he has lived his entire life in Belgaum. Upon graduation, he joined his family business in textile, and later in 1989, diversified the business into manufacturing of helmets. In 1991, the family of 4 brothers acquired Vega motorcycle helmets. And almost 30 years later today, under the helm of Mr. Chandak, Vega has 4 manufacturing plants, 2 in Belgaum and 2 in Uttaranchal, with a total manufacturing capacity today of 25,000 helmets a day. Vega exports brand helmets to many countries globally, including to USA, Canada, Germany, and Japan. And recently, Vega has also opened a distribution offices in USA. The family is also in real estate development and is currently developing 2 major gated residential community. The projects worth almost 1.5 million square feet in Belgaum. Deepak ji, welcome to JITO. It's a pleasure to have an opportunity to speak with you today and learn from your sustainable success stories. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our next speaker today is Mr. Gaurav Rathod, Managing Director of the Salo Group. Mr. Rathod earned his bachelor degrees from Bentley University in Massachusetts and Masters of Business Administration degree from University of Strathclyde in Scotland. To begin with, in his blood are the entrepreneurial genes from his family heritage. Mr. Rathod took a plunge into the family business, the Salo Group, in his early days immediately upon his graduation. Worked his way through many functions within the company, and a vast majority of products such as thermoware, writing instruments, housewares, appliances, glassware, and molded furnitures. In 2017, Mr. Rathod set out to establish a brand new endeavor, Opalware division, that he fondly calls one of his most challenging projects that he undertook from scratch. This endeavor led him to commissioning one of the largest plants and the advanced plants in India, organizing sales, marketing, e-commerce, and just in 3 years, commanding a lead brand play in opalware market segment in India. Today, with an annual turnover of rupees 1,500 crores, which I believe that's US dollars 200 million, and exports worth more than $39 million, there is no dull moment in his day at work. Gaurav Ji is a hands-on and a feet on the ground personality, enjoys interacting with the company staff at all levels, from shop floor to senior management. A few of his passions through which he has further influenced many aspects of the Salo Group is by implementing modernization, world-class automation, manufacturing technologies, and brand development. Gaurav Ji, welcome to Jito. With such an exciting career path and incredible accomplishments in less than a decade, we are excited to hear about your journey today and have you indulge us into how you plan to shape the future beyond. Welcome again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deepak Ji.
Thank you, Deepak Bhai, for introducing today's guest. Now we have another personality from Singapore, is Balwant Jain. He is a founder and a CEO of Optimum Solution, Singapore-based IT outsourcing firm. Optimum is one of the largest IT firms in Singapore with over 1,700 software engineers in Singapore and over 3,000 globally. And last year they got one of the best employer for employee awards. Balwantji, request you to please introduce Pratik Oswal.
Thanks a lot, Gautamji. Jai Jinendra. Dear friends, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Pratik Oswal, rising star of our Jain community. Pratik currently heads Motilal Oswal's AMC's passive funds business, along with their fintech business named Gilday Investment. Prior to this, Pratik was heading operations and finance at a Series A fintech startup in San Francisco, California. The company was backed up by prominent investors such as Y Combinator, Khosla Ventures, Enthemis, Chicago Board of Exchange, and many others, and provided automated wealth solutions to investment advisors and managed over 400 million in assets. Apart from fintech, Pratik also has experience working in investment banking, private equity, and hedge funds. He studied math and economics at Emory University, USA, and has an MBA from London Business School. We are proud of you, Pratik. We look forward to hear your story.
Thank you, Balwantji, for that, and look forward to the session.
Oh,
Thank you, Balwantji. I hope Pradeep Bhai is there. Gaurav, is it Pradeep Bhai is there with us? I heard.
I'm not sure. He's showing on the list.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if he's.
Yeah, Pradeep Bhai, are you there? No. It's showing the list. Okay.
Please let me also allow to introduce today's moderator, Gautamji Oswal. Gautamji is a dear friend to all of us. He is chairman of Jito International Wing and is past Jito Apex Secretary. He is also past president of TiE Hubli and continues to play an important role at TiE at a national level. Gautamji has won our hearts with his great passion and dedication to the cause of Jito. He has been instrumental in starting 11 chapters globally. He is also a successful entrepreneur and has been supporting art, which is such a great cause. Over to Gautamji, please.
Thank you, Balwantji, for introducing nicely. Friends, just like to set a context. We will have 3 speakers. Each will be talking for 15 minutes. Then we have a question and answer for 45 minutes. And we start with Gaurav Rathod. Gaurav bhai, please address the gathering. You are all speakers have a 15 minutes to talk.
Gautamji, thank you so much Thank you, Om Prakash ji, and thank you, Deepak ji, for introducing me and the entire KKG zone. Thanks a lot. It's really an honor to be a part of this panel. You guys have had some amazing panelists here, and a lot of them are geniuses. I'm no genius, but a simple story, a very short story. I've been in the family business for about 5 years now. So it's a very short term at this point of time, long way to go. But of course, I've learned a lot, have really gained a lot of experience, and these are the foundations, I would say, for future endeavors. So as you all know, I come from a family of superstars. Where I start with my granddad. He was an amazing personality, and he kind of built the founding stones for Cello back in 1960s. And Shri Gisulalji Rathod, true genius. So is my dad and my uncle. So I have a lot of responsibility on my shoulders, taking this legacy forward and kind of trying to grow Cello from here and into a world-class company. So, of course, I've got a great platform with Cello. I think I couldn't have gotten a better platform to work on. And of course, with that, a lot of responsibility has come, and I respect that. And of course, a lot of people talk about how, getting a platform is easy and then it's easier to grow. But I think it's a lot tougher. And the challenges are even more daunting as, you try to build from, already a skyscraper has been built and you need to build further. So you need to innovate, and innovation, as everyone knows that it's tough. In today's times, it's tough to innovate, but it is. But it's also a time of opportunities, and I really look forward in my career to grab those opportunities at the right time and grow the business further. So my journey has been quite short. As I said, I entered business in 2014. So I'll give you some context. Deepak ji has already mentioned it. So I graduated from Bentley University in 2010, and then went on to do my MBA in strategy. So it was really there was no time in between. It was more once I knew once I come into business there is no going back. So I kind of did that in succession, and then got married quite early as well. So got married while I was 25, almost 26, and then joined business. So it was all set. So there were no more distractions in my life. So it was a very clear path from then on. Started, with basically my dad, my uncle, all my granddad never forced me into doing anything. So they were very open and always supporting. And so that's why first, I would just like to mention that I also interned at a Bank of New York, was actually into finance a lot during that time because my undergrad degree was in finance economics. So wanted to kind of become an investment banker initially, but then chose different paths. Throughout my MBA, I think, MBA, whatever MBA I did, I think it was quite, I would say right now, retrospectively, quite worthless. I feel being on the ground and actually learning on the ground in the business makes a lot of difference, and you learn true life lessons only in business and while you're working. It never is. Bookish knowledge is very different, and for all the budding people who really want to get early into business, I would say. That's one mistake that I made that I would like to correct if given a chance, if I would ever given a chance again. So I'd like to approach this session a little differently because I want to talk about my learnings and the challenges that I faced and how I learned from it to kind of become a better entrepreneur and kind of implement the strategies in further endeavors that I did. So of course, as I mentioned, my family was very open to me doing anything. So my dad wanted me to go chase my dreams, and that was fantastic. Sometimes he, let me do something that he felt was wrong, but I think it was his way of, teaching me things, and it was hard lessons learned. But I think in retrospect, it was very important, and those lessons stay with me even to date. So I started off, just fresh off the stove, fresh from university. I started as an intern with my uncle in the stationery business. So stationery business was fantastic. It was a growing business at that time, and he wanted me to start learning, the basics, the foundations, and whatever I had learned in my MBA and my undergrad, he wanted me to put to use. So started, he pushed me into going to the market, learning about the market dynamics, learning a lot about, how the product is sold, what are the challenges. So that was a great learning for me when I initially went into the market. And then from there, very important lessons were learned. So I tried to put all my bookish knowledge, whatever I had learned, into this business. And soon I realized, that things are different. The work ethic that I had, in America when I was interning there was very different. So that was a big shock. But at the same time, it made me adapt to a new conditions and a new environment, and that really helped me later on in my business life. So another thing at that particular time, when as a new kid you come into the block and you try to see as an outsider the business, you start seeing only the wrongs. You start seeing what is wrong in the business or what are they not doing right. But you forget to kind of look at why the business was successful in the first place. So I made the same mistake and kind of tried to wanted everything a little more systematic, and there was a lot of chaos as well. But I think in that chaos there was a lot of success that my previous generations had brought in. So I wanted to kind of implement an ERP system at that time. We had a very old one and wanted to redo that, and was basically I tried to push it on people, and that really did not work very well for me. People resisted, and it was tough to get that implemented. And that's one of the lessons that I learned from that, was that you have to have a buy-in of people, and that's one of the most important thing to get in a good team together, because you're as good as your team, and that was an extremely important lesson that I learned. After that, a year or so on, learning more about the dynamics of the business, I decided to start something of an offshoot within the Cello umbrella. I began home appliances as a business. So my dad was quite against it at that time. He said, do you really want to get into this business? Because there's after sales service, there is, customer complaints. How are you going to deal with it? We are not equipped to deal with it today. So you'll have to really do that completely from scratch. So of course, at that time, as you're very, very young and very new, you kind of a rebel. At that time, you really want to do everything. So I said, no, Dad, I want to do this. And he was humble enough to actually support me and said, if you think that this business is good, why not go for it? So I started that business, and of course, a lot of issues initially in the first year. So a lot of complaints came, and so I started wondering what was the issue. Every day, we were putting our heads together, researching the product, getting everything into place. But at the end of it, there were complaints that were coming in, and at some point of time I actually thought that, do I really have I entered the right business? So a lot of people, I spoke to a lot of people then, a lot of mentors that I keep in touch with. They kind of told me that you need to be patient and ride the storm, because there is always light on the other side. So kind of understood the problem, started understanding the complaints, and really put my head to it, and really was able to solve one by one all the issues. And after the second year, we actually started making profits. So was a fantastic journey. So made me learn a couple of very important lessons again. Made me learn that patience and perseverance is basically key. You can't judge something very early, and you need to be patient. Secondly, it also made me realize that taking criticism and feedback is very, very important, because without that, you can't make a product better. We are a very product-centric company. We are a B2C company completely. So for us, the end product, the end consumer, what he thinks is really what matters. And I think taking that criticism, taking that constructive feedback from our clients and our distributors really helped me to kind of, stabilize that business. After another year passed and, that started doing pretty well. Then I shifted my focus. We were actually predominantly a plastic, household product company. Back in 2000, this was back in 2016. And, my dad's vision was to make it a kind of a conglomerate with different interests in different materials. So it can be still within the household thermoware kind of, realm, but the material should not matter. So we kind of shifted our focus to glass. So I started importing glass initially. So we started importing from all around the world, build a great portfolio, build a great catalog, and started selling that. But I made one simple mistake, is that a lot of the products that were selling in the market, I kind of replicated those. And after that, the product that I did not replicate did very well. So great lesson again learned was that product differentiation in any subject, in any field is extremely important, and more so in the B2C business. So started doing that, and really helped me scale the glassware business up. And every product that we bought after that, a lot of thought went into it, a lot of brainstorming went into it. And also I learned one thing, that the customer on the ground is more clever than you, because he understands every aspect. And as we all say, customer is king, and that's one lesson that I really learned. So all of these things that I did in the first 3 years of my journey were really points that are taught to you in school, but you never really understand the value of it then, or you don't understand it until you've gone through it yourself. So finally in 2017, I kind of I got my big break, as to say, that we started a company which is Cello Opalware. Cello Opalware is into glass manufacturing. One of the most challenging things I've done in my life till date, whether it be business or personal. But it was because there are only about 12 plants like these in the world, and really high capex investment upfront, and so was a very important product for me. I was very passionate about it. Had done a lot of research on it initially. So basically, we manufacture dinnerware and hot drinks and stuff like that. It's beautiful products with the value for money at the end of the day. So the reason why I selected this product, so I got my learnings that I had from previous challenges. I tried to imbibe them and learn from them and try to implement them in this business. So first of all, I got a product that was differentiated in the sense that there were not too many producers. So that helped me, so that scalability in the future would not be a problem. So that was one point that was very important. Second, the customer could see the value in it, because it looked like it sold, for example, a 27-piece dinner set today sells for about 3,000 rupees MRP, and a customer thinks that it is a 9,000 rupee MRP. So the value that a customer sees in the product is fantastic. So I think that I wanted to make sure that wow factor is there. We are, as entrepreneurs, we're all storytellers, and our product needs to tell that story. And for me, this Opalware hit the point. And after that, we started adapting as well, because around the world, Opalware, there are a lot of different things are made in Opalware, different kinds of plates, bowls. So we started localizing as well. For example, in Gujarat, they use very small teacups, or they use saucers. So saucers normally are never sold separately; they're sold with the cup. But in Gujarat, saucers are sold separately, and they use it as snack plates. So that was some understanding that we got, and that really helped us scale very quickly. So today in the Opalware business, we are about 60% of turnover of our competitor, who's been in this business for about 2 decades now. So we were able to scale up very, very quickly. So again, a great team. Of course, I had a fantastic team to go with. So I built the team first and then the project. So I think that really helps, to kind of get things together and not make as many mistakes. Of course, everyone's going to make mistakes when they start a business. but learning from those early and having the right team to kind of work on them really makes a lot of difference. So I was able to get all these learnings that I had gathered and put it all into this business. So it's been about 2.5 years now, and it's been fantastic. And it gives me more confidence to do something next. So now it's not about learning anything. It's now about what's next. And every day I ask that question. I'm also a person who gets bored very quickly of certain things. I need to do every day something new, and that drives me to look at other businesses, look at other opportunities. So that's been my story. I'm very thankful to Jito as a platform. My dad is very passionate about Jito, and you guys have built a fantastic platform. There are veterans here of Jito, and you guys have done a fantastic job. Another point that Gautam uncle raised was about COVID. I just want to touch upon that a little bit too before I end. Is about how we are dealing with it now and what would be our strategy post-COVID. So COVID as a situation has been, of course, a disruptive one. It has disrupted a lot of businesses and ours as well, because ours is a completely B2C kind of a business, and we are very badly affected by it. But at the same time, there are a lot of opportunities and a lot of rejiggle and reshuffle that has happened within our organization as well, where now we are poised to be more efficient in our working. As Pratik was mentioning some time back, their productivity has increased a lot more. So same for us, our productivity has skyrocketed, and within our workforce has become more efficient at doing the work they have been able to do. So those are the positives that have come out. I think post this, there will be a lot of other opportunities where, of course, there will be a lot of consolidation in a lot of the industries, and that will give us, a good platform to scale up our business. So I think there are a lot of positives that is going to come out of this, and I feel there is nothing to. It's basically a wake up alarm for all the people who weren't efficiently managing things. And it is how it is. The business world is crude at times, but it can be it can be a great opportunity as well. So with that, I end my story. This has been a short journey that I have taken. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Gaurav. It was nice to hear your story, and happy to know that the multitasking you are doing your innovation. You are working from down bottom to the top bosses, and generally it doesn't happen in the well-established group. So nice to know about you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you.
Now we have a Dilip Chandak. Dilip Chandak is a good friend of mine. He told you introduced about Vega helmet, and he's always in the competition. Either he's a world number 1 or number 2. Competitor increase 1,000 per month. He increased 2,000. He increased 3,000. He increased 2,000. So now per day they are making 25,000 plant. I have seen his excellent plant, and we work together in TIE also and a round table also. So I request Dilip Chandak to please address us.
Thank you. Thank you all the Jito friends, Gautam, my co-speakers, and really very nice, Gaurav, to hear your story. Very inspiring for the second generation, especially how they can take, you have given at least another 50 years growth, what you call a life to your company, and then the legacy can go on. Thank you so much, and very inspiring. And we also have a second generation coming in business, so that will be your story will be very inspiring to them also. Anyway, coming back to Vega, we basically come from a textile business, and from textile business, we are 4 brothers. When we started, when we got separated from our joint business, we had to do something different, because textile was a capital intensive business, and we didn't have any kind of capital in those days. So we started with some gas appliances business, and then we were looking out for an opportunity, because opportunities are always there once you look out for an opportunity. And in 1989, with the Motor Vehicle Act coming up for making helmet mandatory, we thought this will be a good opportunity to get into a new business. So that is where we found an opportunity to get into. However, the helmet compulsion did not come up for quite some time in India. Even today, it's there, it's not there, it's there and it's not there. Both is there. So it was a very initially challenging period to start with. However, there is a growth story from 25 helmets. We have now reached 25,000 helmets because we had a very confident that this product will have one day a good, what you call, opportunity. People will buy, it will have a good market for itself. So we were always kept our eye open, you know, for any kind of opportunity. So this is what I tell all the business people. There is always an opportunity all over. You should always see. And we took this as an opportunity. And as any business is required, we have to always have some kind of ups and some kind of downs. And because the purpose of we getting into business of being with the thought that helmets will be made mandatory, which did not come. So we had to be a little innovative and a little different to make sure how do we market helmet. Because in those days, even today, though the safety is come up to a larger extent in people's mind, but still there's a long way for people to understand what safety means. But back in late 80s and 90s, people like, you know, father in front of his son, who's 18-year-old, also he would say, helmet kaun pehenta hai? Kya zarurat hai? So this kind of information they did without realizing that what they are talking to their children, this kind of atmosphere, it was tough. So the first innovation thing what we did was, and where the company started changing, we created helmet as a fashion product, then a safety product. And where people as a bikers, they started using as a stylish helmet and all this. So that is where the innovation started. And then the whole business started going. We were 4 brothers, and coming from a joint family, we work all of us together, and beautiful coordination among ourselves. We work very hard to get these things. By default, everybody started specializing in the company for different roles. Like my younger brother got into marketing, I was into finance, and of course marketing, creating a business opportunities. One brother got into production, and one brother got into R&D. So the team was built, and that's how we started. And the best innovations what we did was atomizing our units, bringing in new technologies, getting into mass production, because that was the need of an hour at that time. We got a lot of products we started making in India. A lot of products were not being made in India at that time, like visors and other things. So eventually we got all those products in India. And during this journey, we had some kind of failures also. Some of the failures were like when we were growing, we did not realize what kind of manpower required. So what's very simple language I'm trying to tell you. As we were growing, we just used our good worker. We made him a supervisor. So in bargain, what happened? We lost a good worker and we got a bad manager because his thought process was limited. So that delayed our growth for quite some time because we did not build a manpower for some time. But at the time we realized it was a couple of years that had gone. So such mistakes do happen. And these are the challenges that every business, business comes with some challenges, but you should not be worried about because it's not really big. A lot of people, they talk, this is a problem, that is a problem, but these are the part and parcel of the business. Another mistake what we did was, there was a time when Maharashtra we started growing from 2000 till 2005. We had a good growth period. But in 2005, Maharashtra was made mandatory. This is a very important point where sometime without realizing, trying to do good, we do a bad thing for our own company. That's when Maharashtra became compulsion. Lot of people, and because in and around Maharashtra, we have a lot of relatives, friends and all. Everybody thought there's an opportunity to do a business and get into this business of trading of helmets. And we gave agency to a lot of the known people and family members, cousins or whatever it is. But they were not from the trade, so they couldn't really sell, and the helmet compulsion did not come. At the time, if a helmet dealer was there, or our experience said, they would have sold the material, they would have got their money, whatever it is. But here we had to take back all the material. So at the time when we were supposed to make money, we have lost money at that year. And that was a very bad year for us, which was supposed to be good year. And when we were going through a bad phase, at one fine day, I told my brother, let us start thinking, in a different way. Nothing is going good. Nothing is going good. Let's do one thing. From today, let's start talking. Everything is going good. And believe it or not, I don't know what it was a coincidence. Really things started changing. From 2005 till here, we had one-sided growth from a humongous growth as far as trade and industry is concerned. Helmet, though it is a safety product, it has also become a fashionable product. Every day you have to have innovation. Every day you have to change the model, color, combination, scheme. So it's a huge team. And to create a brand, you need to have marketing skills. And we had an in-house talent and a lot of advertisements. We never had any professional advertising because we never had a kind of budget for marketing. We couldn't, because a lot of our funds is to go into R&D and all. But we became very innovative in marketing. So our company basically, other than producing helmets, we were also a good marketing team. Ourselves, in-house team created, and we took a good advantage of social media marketing and all, and created a brand. Then this is how we came till this story, this thing. Here I would like to tell everyone during this growth period, what gives growth is most important, is a very big thing, is a confidence. And how do you get a confidence? When you are not doing well or something like that. So I had come across one nice story. In 2 lines, I would tell you a story. There was one businessman who had done a lot of business. He was so successful, but at some point he went on expanding. At one point he realized that he had lost, because he did not manage well. So he lost a lot of money, and he realized that he's into huge debt. So he tried all his options, and when he couldn't be able to pay his debt, he thought that he'll commit suicide. So he went and stood. I'm sure a lot of people would have heard this story, but I just want to bring up this point, how things change. When he was trying to commit suicide, he thought that let me enjoy last. He was sitting on one cliff and he wanted to jump from the mountain. Before that, let me take 5 minutes back. As he was sitting there, a man with a suit and all, he came there. He asked him, what are you doing? He says, this is what has happened in my life. I'm going to commit suicide. He said, why do you want to commit suicide? I'm Henry Ford. I'll give you a check of $100 million. You try and revive your company. If you not been able to pay my money, don't pay me. But if you can revive your company, you can pay me after 1 year. So this person takes his check. He goes for a year. He stayed. First he thought like, this time I'm going to be smart with my money, so I'm not going to encourage this money. So he went on seeing what went wrong in his company. He started plugging all the loopholes, and his company started doing extremely well, where he did not encash this money also, and he was out of debt. But then now he wanted to go and pay back his money, and he was again successful. So he thought, let me return back the check. So he goes there. He's waiting, as he had told, for Henry Ford, and he waited. And after some time, Henry Ford again he comes there. Then he says, what happened? He says, take this check back and thank you so much, because of you I was successful. As he was talking, there were 4 people who came and that lifted that Henry Ford, and they were taking back with him. So he asked, why are you taking? He says, he's a mental. He's not a Henry Ford. He keeps telling Henry Ford and distributing checks to everyone. So my purpose of telling you is, if you have a Henry Ford check, you really don't need money. For us, what happened was we invested in real estate. How this real estate is to play different was, suppose I have purchased a land today, an agriculture land. same day I think if I convert this to NA layout, I will feel it's going to be a 1 crore rupees value. I just paid 10 lakhs, but in my mind, it is to be like 1 crore rupees worth more today. So the real estate diversification kept on giving us a confidence to expand business here. So during business, whatever savings you are doing, if that is giving you additional confidence, I mean, we never had to resell, but on paper, it's a huge valuation that was created, but that made us have a huge confidence into the business. So my purpose of telling was, sometimes you really don't need money for your business. It's the talent. It's you have to just have one Henry Ford check with you. It's also, I need to, this is how, you know, our story is. One of the most important thing is we brothers work really together. Our journey was fantastic. The joint family, if it works well. But if it's a very good life we can have if the joint family works. It's a totally different subject from a joint family. We can talk about it later. But till from here, this journey, when it was going on, at one particular point, we were also thinking of how do we take this business, like how Gaurav has come back in a second generation. We were also thinking this, how do we develop our next generation? How do we take the legacy forward? This is very much important. Like, you know, the parent plays very important role by building the journey till here. And then if things don't go well with the second generation, you can go back. So my advice is, like, you know, when we are doing business, it has to for a long term, and the next generation and following the company has to grow. Money may come, may go, but company has to keep growing it. In India, the problem is we grow to a certain extent, the next generation again they split, again the company goes down. Whereas in abroad, and you can hear, it is like 300 years old company, 400 years old company, 200 years old, whatever it is. But in India, it is very difficult. This is what we have to start thinking. How can we make $1 billion company or for a longer time? And for that, the most important thing is parents has to start delegating their delegation, make them decision maker. And today, one of the best examples, I mean, coincidentally, I would have spoken about it. Gaurav is one of the best examples. We should really take it off from, I mean, more than Gaurav, we should learn something from his parents, how they build the second generation. By doing that, they have fixed their business for next 50 years. They have made it, cemented it for 50 years at least. And the business, basically, we make mistake at times by not considering as suppliers or as a partner, because these people are also big partners. And that is what I always believe. The people who, we always try to take care of dealers, but not suppliers, because there are a lot of suppliers sitting in front of your door. But that if you keep on changing supplier, it also doesn't help in business. Our philosophy was to grow with everyone. We did not have that kind of suppliers who could have grown. I mean, they were capable of handling such kind. When we started, we were small, they were small. But we always discussed with them. Whatever technology they also required, we try to help them and build them. So this is one of the key factors that makes a business successful, because exploitation doesn't work. But if you treat them like a partner, all the people, whether it may be your dealer or anybody connected, whether you're a logistic person or anything, because longer the period they have with you, the services and everything what they give is very important. That is how the team is built. We have suppliers since we started a business, most of them. We have dealers who, when we started, and a lot of staff also are there who have been for over a period of so many years. Hence, it's very important that we all work together in a very big way. Another most important thing as when it comes to an opportunity and other factors is, say for example, now COVID-19. In COVID-19, the day I mean, everybody realizes that everyone's business is going to go for toss for some time. But on 22nd of March, when immediately this thing was announced lockdown, we realized that facials can be made because we have an infrastructure. And with our infrastructure, we came out with COVID products, and within a week's time, we launched it because it's not that there are no safety manufacturers in this country. I mean, a lot of people are there in a business for over years. But this opportunity, the way we captured and with our infrastructure we utilized, I think we were one of the finest products we made during COVID in a short span. And we must be the highest producers of the safety product right now in the India today, as of today. So it's an opportunity that people should be looking for and making it available. I mean, use it. What we also did was, one of the biggest thing was networking. Most important thing for everyone should be a networking. And more the networking you do, more the opportunities you get, because this is how you get ideas. This is where you think of what you call a lot of business opportunities can come. And to do a networking, it's very important that we are very open with everyone. We helped during open us so much during COVID. We had a lot of industrialists meet, and we appealed to each one in a short span. If we could allow each other to use our infrastructure for the products to be made, it will be a wonderful thing. So with few meetings, a lot of things changed in India, in Belgaum. And the amount of products that for COVID was developed in Belgaum, I think it can become one of like Belgaum is known for its hydraulics. Belgaum is known for its foundries. It will eventually be known for healthcare industry too. And this is nothing but a very simple thought process that came in, just allow each other's infrastructure to be used. If we think that we are going to compete China, first we should understand who our competitors are. We never try to help any of our people. We never try to support. I mean, we don't even know who our competitors are properly actually. Just because he's a friend and he's doing well, we feel he's my competitor. He's doing more better than me. It's not. I mean, in bad times, if he is successful, he's going to come to our use. We have to support each other. China is a competition in the world market. A lot of myth is there that we cannot compete China because we are not scalable. If we are scalable, definitely you can compete because we are the cheapest. In our industry, I think we are the cheapest manufacturer of helmets in the world with the high quality and super quality. But because we are not presenting ourselves properly, the people are going to China, whatever it is. Now, suddenly things can change. Everybody has to be scalable. Scalable is the key thing in future. So, even post-COVID, we have to start thinking of helping each other of our industry, fellow industrialists. And if we can allow our infrastructure and networking and help each other, we can come up in a very big way. That's all I think I should tell you at this moment because of the short time. I mean, stories can be kept told again and again, but I think it was wonderful sharing my experience to you. Hope it inspires few people and especially the next generation and the new business community coming in. It will be wonderful to see more and more successful people coming in forward.
Thank you, Dilip bhai. It was so great to hear you. And the best thing what you said, कि आप लोगों ने बोलना चालू किया कि भाई आज से सब अच्छा होगा तो सब अच्छा हो गया. It was nicely said in book Secret. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. And both the way you are right. So you are very true, Dilip bhai. And I'm sure in COVID time, everybody should try to learn this. Thank you so much. We have excellent speaker, Pratik Oswal. We request him to please address us.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me out here. Thank you, Jito. It's an honor again to be here, and I look forward to having a great discussion with all of you. Also, thank you, Gautam ji, thank you, Balwant ji, and thank you, Deepak ji, for the warm introduction. And I hope I get to meet all of you very soon. Also, I mean, Gaurav and Dilip ji, I mean, that was a very inspiring story. And I hope, I think it inspires a lot of other people in this country because, as corporates, I think, at least my belief is that you can't really have a country of 120, 130 crore Indians apply for jobs. The only way, we can make use of this young population is by building new businesses, by building new industries. And I hope, and Jito as a platform is honestly, I mean, any platform that encourages entrepreneurship is something which I am extremely supportive of, and I hope we get more than the second and third generation. We get the new Cellos and the new Motilal Oswal and the new Vegas in the future. Just wanted to maybe spend some time in my introduction. That was a very formal one. I'll make a slightly more informal one. So I went to boarding school when I was 16. So I left my house pretty early. Boarding school was great because I think in terms of my experience, I used to play competitive sport. So a lot of my, I would say, learnings early on in my life came from sport and books. Unfortunately, I wasn't very good at academics. I was very good at math. But because I was bad at half the amount of subjects, I was graded an average student. But I think books were very helpful, and so was sport. I could really learn a lot about team dynamics, which I think was extremely helpful in life as well. So I went to boarding school, then also went to the US to study after that. I studied economics and math, two of my big passions, still are my two big passions. Really enjoyed it. I think university was very eye-opening. You could do so much out there than what you could do anywhere else. I studied humanities, which gave me access to a lot of topics outside of more traditional areas. So it really expanded my view of the world, and I think I could really explore topics in many areas. And I do recommend a lot of people to go and study humanities. I think it is a very great, I would say, field. After that, so I sort of came back to India. I worked here for 3 years with the Motilal Oswal group. I actually, don't really see it as a family sort of business, because the only family member that is involved in the business is my father. So I think I actually see it as a partnership, because obviously you have two partners running the show. So I was lucky to, spend 3-4 years working in different verticals. That was a great learning experience. I think, but I also sort of, felt the need to go outside and work outside. I did feel that I didn't really have the professional or the work ethic that was required for me to do bigger things. So I ended up applying for an MBA. Went to London. Interesting story. I was supposed to go to the US in Boston. Supposed to go to MIT for my MBA, but I also in fact happened to meet my wife then, so decided to actually go to London just to be with her and to support her. And I think that was a great decision overall. I think living in a different continent gives you a very different perspective, and I do recommend everyone to sort of maybe live and work in different countries, just to, because I do think that most people end up being stuck in this bubble, and it helps you see things from a very different limelight once you live in sort of different places and different geographies. And I have been lucky to work in different geographies. Worked in Hong Kong, I worked in London, I worked in also in Atlanta, where I was there for undergrad, and also in California, which was the most interesting, most learning opportunity, at least for me. Also, I think in terms of the best decision I've made, obviously it's been marrying my wife. She's quite a powerhouse. She was here, I think, 2 months ago. I hope a lot of you saw her video. You guys should definitely see it. It's very inspiring. I think she's been a great inspiration for me, and I've always been fully supportive of her. In fact, I was supposed to move to India post my MBA, but ended up going to Silicon Valley because she ended up getting into Stanford's MBA program, which obviously is a huge recognition. And even though I had no visa, I had no job, ended up going there, just to, make sure that, she's settled and everything. And I spent maybe 4 or 5 months struggling to find a job. I think it was, and not having a visa and was quite not easy, but I was very lucky. I think persistence pays over some time. Happened to work in a terrific company out there. It was a fintech company, which I was extremely passionate about. I've spent the first half of my 20s in more traditional finance, investment banking, private equity. But then the second half, I actually worked in tech. So I worked all across tech. I worked in 2 startups when I was in London. I worked for a really interesting series, a fintech startup in San Francisco, where I was the 4th or maybe the 5th employee there. So we started off as a very small team, 4 or 5 people. We were managing. So this is a wealth advisory business where we were managing money for people. And we scaled up from $40 million in assets to almost $500 million in a year and a half. So we had incredible success. We went to a startup accelerator called Y Combinator, which has now effectively become, I think, one of the world's premier, I would say, startup accelerators. We raised around $7.5 million in Series A money, which I think was the hardest thing we've done, but I think somehow, it went through, which was great. And we also expanded our team to 30, close to 30 people. So I think that was a great experience. And most of my learnings, I'll be honest, has come from that. I think working in a startup is absolute chaos. It looks really nice and sexy from the outside. But I think internally, I think anyone you talk to is building a business, and I haven't been a part of that, obviously, but I had that experience working in a startup. It is it's almost crisis after crisis on a daily basis. So that was a great experience, and I hope to, maybe take that experience and replicate in India. I do have some inclination towards technology and towards at least financial technology, which is where I'm working currently. So that was my experience in the Silicon Valley. It was incredibly difficult. 6 days, 7 days a week, working 12, 14 hours a day. I used to commute 2 hours back and forth from San Francisco and back. Very humbling experience. I got a lot of feedback. I got to learn a lot about how to work in a technology startup sort of environment versus more corporate setup. And currently, I think I decided to move back to India after my wife's MBA. And so currently, obviously, in terms of so when I wanted to sort of go and work in India, I really wanted to work on something innovative. So currently, and what I saw when I was working for the company in San Francisco, I learned that these type of mutual funds called index funds and ETFs are very popular in the US, and I wanted to get them to India. So that's what I started focusing on when I was in India. So I think I started this around a year ago. In I think May or April of last year is when we started the process of setting up this business, and I think so far it's done phenomenally well. I think I'm pretty happy with this with the traction we've had. We started with close to 150, 160 crores in assets. Now we are up to almost 2,500 crores. So I think overall good traction. I hope to it, and I hope it sort of increases in the future as well. A lot of it has been obviously hard work, but I think we've also had right place, right time also, which has also been very helpful. So that's typically I think my experience. Obviously, my experience building in the family has been very 1 year. But in terms of how I want to spend this presentation is talking about some of my mistakes I've made. As I said, I'm a big believer of entrepreneurship, of building businesses, and I would love to share some of. And even though my startup or the startup that I worked for did relatively well on an outsider space, I think we made a ton of mistakes, a huge ton of mistakes, and I always have. I want to talk about my mistakes so that I make sure that other people don't make the same mistakes. So I want to maybe spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes of my time talking about some of the learnings I've had in building tech businesses, and especially in a very dynamic area, such as Silicon Valley, where I think you would really meet some of the most passionate people in the world, some of the most smartest, and also I think it's a very interesting ecosystem to work for. And I do recommend a lot of people to who are inspired by the future, to actually go and visit the Bay Area and spend some time there and meet really interesting companies out there. So I think in terms of my mistakes, I think my mistakes. I want to divide it into 4 parts. So I think let's start with hiring. Hiring has been obviously as any entrepreneur today. Hiring is the number one thing that is on their minds. Hiring can, at least when you're starting from scratch, hiring can make or break you. The first 2 or 3 employees that you hire, or at least co-founders that you hire, are very, very critical. And I do think that one mistake, at least, well, I wasn't really in charge, but one mistake that I ended up doing is also looking at education, which I think is not really relevant at all. I do think that the future of jobs is not degrees, it is skills. And I keep telling this to people. In India has a lot of degrees, but the big problem in India is the lack of skills. And I think that is something which I really learned when I was there. You have to be able to be good. You can't be an all-rounder. You can't be a manager. And the future of businesses is all going to be how can you value add in this specific domain. So I do think that is something which I learned a lot. And education is something which, even in a place like Silicon Valley, no one really takes education very seriously. It's about so now whenever I go out and hire people, I actually give them a coding test or some exam so that I can really see how they think and how their skills are. So I think skills are very important, especially for futuristic businesses. The second mistake that I think at least we made is we hired too quickly. This is something which a lot of entrepreneurs ask me. How should you hire post fundraise? So when we raised, say, $7.5 million, we ended up expanding our team like instantly. We went from 12 people to, say, 25, 27 people. And that was actually not very great because we hired assuming growth. But the reality was that no, we didn't have the same growth coming in as that was expected. So we had to go up from 25 to back to, I think, 15 or 16 people, which is very painful for the organization. There was a lot of losses in good talent. And I do think that the best way to hire or grow your company is to hire with growth, not before or not after. So I think that was a big mistake I made. And I think hopefully I'll want to do the same again. The second, I would say, vertical is fundraising. Fundraising is something which is a big talk. I think in India as well, most entrepreneurs want to raise money. But before I talk about fundraising, what I learned about fundraising is that it's actually a not very big industry, the VC industry. So if you look at all of venture capital deals all over the world, the cumulative amount of money that's currently been invested in startups is only $10 to $15 billion. So Geo raised $20 billion, which is double of what the entire world invest in venture capital. So it's actually a very cottage industry, and only the media, obviously, we love reading about startups getting money and all of that, but actually it's a very small industry. And the reason why I'm saying this is because you don't really have to raise money. As entrepreneurs, we don't have to raise money. Most people start companies with the goal of raising money, but actually the goal should be to solve a problem. And if you really need money, then yes, you can go out there and raise money. So number one, you don't really need to raise money. And in fact, when you raise money, it comes with a lot of extra expectations and all of that, which I think can be good or bad as well. So that is one. Second is that it takes a lot of time. I think people think that raising money is actually easy, but it takes a very, very long time. In fact, for us at least, it was not easy. We expected it to take 1 to 2 or 3 months time. It ended up taking around 6 to 7 months time. And we did get rejected by a lot of venture capitalists, a lot of angel investors. I mean, almost everyone. I think what I really learned is persistence is key. When it comes to raising money, you just need one investor. That's it. You talk to 100. It's fine if you get rejected by 99, but you need one investor to back you. And when you have that one investor, there'll be others coming in for you. So I think that was a huge learning for me. You just need one successful conversation. And the same is true for sales as well. Also, so that is a huge learning. You don't take rejection very seriously. Just go out there, persist, and hopefully you will be able to be successful. The third thing that I learned about at least raising money has been the ability to think big. So one big feedback, at least what I learned from the VC industry, was like for a venture capital investment, if you multiplies money 4x, 5x, 6x, it's a write-off, because they're taking so much risk that the only way they'll actually make money is if you are a 100x or a 200x. So that is the story that you have to sell to them. We started by selling a $3 billion story. This is assets, not valuation. We went from 3 to 30. And that's when people started taking us seriously. So you have to have the ability and also, I would say, the confidence of thinking big. And that's where you can really get these guys to take you a lot more seriously. So that was fundraising. Third is, I think culture, which I think is the most important bit, at least in the startup. People underestimate the importance of good culture. You know, culture in a small team is a result of action, not really words. You know, what you put on the wall makes not much of a difference, but what you do on a daily basis, especially as a founder, is extremely important. You know, I think culture happens when you act well. I do think that in a startup, a lot of the culture is built around crisis management. You know, you're always in some sort of crisis. You'll never see a founder who's raised a lot of money be extremely happy at all times, because he knows that at the back there are 55 problems that he has to solve. And obviously, the team is very happy, but I do think that so crisis management becomes extremely hard, extremely important, and that is something which we are underestimated happening after we started getting the traction that we did. And lastly, I think you have to have high standards. So what I learned was, if you don't have high standards, the person with the lowest standard will be everyone's benchmark. So if the guy with the lowest standard gets promoted, everybody is going to feel bad about it. So I think it's very important to have high standards in hiring. You have to be able to hire people who uphold to those standards. And if they don't hold the standards, I think it's important to maybe discontinue the relationship or do something else. So it's very important to understand that it has to be across the organization, because one not high standard guy will pull down the entire organization in terms of expectations. So that is something which, also we made mistakes of, and we sort of recollected. Lastly, let's talk about competition and customer. Obviously I have a list of 50 learnings, but I wanted to compress it in as small as possible. When it comes to competition, I think, I think this is more of a philosophical thing. Us Indians, we have been born, our education system is such that we are born to compete. We are born to be better than anyone else. We are born to, be in a rat race. We want to be better than my neighbor's son, or be better than this one, better than that one, better in sports, better in grades, better in looks, everything. And that mentality ends up coming in the corporate world as well. The problem is today a lot of Indians or a lot of businesses, tend to look more at their competition than they do to their customers. And ideally, businesses are built for customers, not for the competition. So I do think that, one big learning that I've had is to be extremely customer obsessed. By doing a Me Too strategy or by doing a copying strategy, it's not going to work, because by the time you finish copying your competitor, he's gone to do 50 other things which you cannot catch up with. It's very stressful copying products or copying strategies, because that strategy was made 2 or 3 years ago and you're copying it today. So I do think that, I think you have to be customer obsessed. You cannot look at competition as a small company. You have to think different. By trying to replicate a bigger company, you're actually doing yourself a huge disservice. So I do think that is extremely important. It's important to have a niche and make sure that you create a really good value proposition in that niche, and then obviously grow from there. And lastly, and this is a very overall, I would say, learning for me, and this is something which is obviously a mistake, coming from a mistake, is that you always think that if you make enough sense or if you're logical, good things will happen to you. That is actually not true. What I learned was it's all about relationships. Whether it is when you're the reason why I got my job in the Valley is not because of the number of job applications. I must have done 40 job applications and all were rejected. It's because I built a relationship with the founder over 2-3 months time, and that's how I actually got the role. And as well as sales. So we spoke to hundreds of people. The reason why we got sales coming in from our customers is because we had very good relationships with them. It goes on for many things. So I do think that the power of relationships is very strong, and the earlier you develop these relationships, the better it is. In fact, relationships trump logic. So even if it doesn't make sense for you to do business, and if you have a good relationship, it will actually end up in you sort of going out there and closing the deal. So I think those were I think some of the learnings that at least I've had in building a business in Silicon Valley. Obviously, I have a laundry list of 50-60 things, but I do hope that a lot of entrepreneurs today who are looking at this do not, I think, looking at this from a positive view light, and can use this as doing really good. I think as a country we need I think more and more people in entrepreneurship, and I hope this is very helpful. And again, thank you also Jito for organizing. Thank you the KKG wing, and look forward to having more of these in the future. Thank you.
Unmute Gautam.
Thanks, Pratik. It was nice to listen and multiple work. And I have seen only very few speakers on the platform. They said I made mistakes. And it required guts to do that. It was nice listening to you. I'm sure all the speaker, 15-20 minutes is very less time. We will have a bigger session later. Thank you. Thank you, Pratik. And
Thank you, Gautam ji.
In this session, thank you. In this session, I would like to bring something, business opportunity. So I request all the speakers to please tell what today's audience can take advantage and a business opportunity from you, and what you can also gain from them. For example, I would like to give, there's a Vimal Shah Kenya. He's also with us, the richest guy of East Africa. Dilip bhai, you can tie up helmet with him, doing helmet business with him. It's like something for all. So please tell us what you offer opportunity and what you need opportunity, because we welcome a person from Zimbabwe. He's also there. Yashwant Gemawatji from Zimbabwe. We have from USA, Singapore. We have our Secretary Kamlesh Hojatia. We welcome all. And we start with Dilip again. Dilip, what is the opportunity you can offer to us? And what do you think we can, Jito people can do it for you?
Well, first, Gautam, I know you for the last 25 years. The way you have worked during very initially, you have always been very entrepreneur and giving opportunities, even in round tabling and all. The way you have worked, you have taken tabling to a different level, and we had an opportunity to travel with you. We have passed a lot of time. So one of the best things what you are doing in Jito is giving huge business opportunities. I mean, other than this conference, so we keep hearing the way that enthusiasm and that fire what you are giving is most important to all you and your organization, and you play a very active role in that. And because through you, I know Jito a lot. A lot of my friends are there also who are in Jito. Yes, I'm going we have a big opportunities. So we are basically like to grow ourselves as a multinational company, truly multinational company from India. There's a scope of starting an industry also in Africa, Southeast Asia, and distribution network in USA and Europe. So there is a huge potential as far as our industry is concerned. Even believe it or not, I mean, a lot of people do not know this business because they're not into it. But if you see the many showrooms that are available, this fashion brand, whether it's textile or our helmet dealers are doing extremely good. They are making more money than even some of the retail shops here. I mean, in place like Bangalore, my distributor is doing almost 25 to 30 crore business a year. So it's a total business. A motorcycle has become a lifestyle. It's a fashion product. Motorcycle is a necessary, but there's a lifestyle also. People do not want to buy, now they want to buy 10,000 rupees, 50,000 rupees worth helmet. Can you believe this? I mean, there was a time when we were the most expensive helmet for 2,000 rupees. Now 2,000 rupees become a common thing. So there's a huge business opportunity in our business. You want to be a distributor or to come up with to be a supplier, because we are scalable industry, the huge requirements are there. Whatever we could do together, there is a lot of opportunities are there.
What will be the 5 best component you are buying?
See,
like I know thermocol.
Injection molding company. Yeah. And other than that, textile is required for us. Lot of metal components are required. It is as good as making a car. I mean, any automobile product without engine, it's high-tech product. Lot of components are going. Plastic components are there. Fabrics are there. Thermocol is there. Many products.
Okay. Anybody has this product? Please write to Jito or write to me. I'll connect you directly to Dilip bhai. Thanks, Dilip bhai.
Thank you so much. And once again, thank you.
You
Gautam.
need to be there. You have some more questions with us. Yeah. Gaurav?
Yes, Ankit. So basically, with Cello, I think there's a lot of opportunities because we have such a wide portfolio and we are directly connected to the consumer. And as a brand, we are very well established, at least within India and some of the GCC countries. So basically, of course, anything within the kitchen segment or the household segment, we have always keep horizontally growing. Last year, we started cleaning products, which actually has done fantastic this year because of this situation. Cleaning, house cleaning has become a very important part, and people are buying mops every day. So, like this, we horizontally, of course, every 2 years, we horizontally keep growing into products that have some synergy. So, for example, we were looking at a lot of pans, pots, for example, cookware. So cookware, we've been looking at this category for a while now. So that is something that, if there are OEM suppliers out there who want to supply, and that would be something that we would be interested in. Also, most of our business today is domestic. So export is there, but it's a very small component. So if someone wants to really build the brand, in other countries, then we're also open to that. Recently, we tied up with Amazon Global to kind of sell our products in the US, and it has been a good start. But there is a lot of potential. So all of these are different possibilities, with Cello.
Thanks, Gaurav. Pratik, you need to, yeah.
Yes, Gautam, thank you. I think lots of opportunities, so we obviously have our clients. So in the mutual fund business out here in India, which is what I'm taking care of, we have a lot of customers or clients all over the world who are investing in our mutual funds in India. Obviously, India is a very high growth story, and the opportunity to invest in India is quite high. So anyone who's looking to have a distributor partnership, where we can obviously have or give investment opportunities to Indians or whoever it is outside of India, that can be actually really, really fruitful relationships. Apart from that, also any financial services company, who also wants to set up an asset management company like a mutual fund, we have all the expertise, we have the products, we have the research, the compliance, everything. So we can always partner up and see if we can, also go out there and build that business. The products that I look at are extremely simple, so that are easily replicable in multiple parts of the planet, and also they're very popular today. So I think these are the two angles that I think if anyone is looking to I think do something, I'm more than happy to have a conversation or connect. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Pratik. Pratik, one more question to you now. In this time, everybody struggling, but especially the startup. I have also started to start up, and it is becoming very difficult to raise fund now in this time. And
yeah,
I'm sure if we cannot raise a fund, company will not survive. So it is as equal, though it is difficult, but we need to raise the fund. So what do you advise on this?
Yeah, so I think raising money is extremely tough. Especially in today's environment. I do think that number one, yes, it's the most difficult environment that we've ever seen before. But also today's environment is the most opportunistic I would say time in a very long time, in the sense that there is no better time to launch a digital business than today. Because everyone, I think, so anyone is looking to launch a startup or is doing something which is physical, who wants to go digital, or is already doing something digital, I think this is a great time to actually start building, because you have a lot of people out there who are looking to more, who are looking for more technology based solutions. I think that is a huge job. So I think, I think it's obviously, I don't really understand which business, but I do think that, this is a golden opportunity in terms of fundraising. I do recommend, as I said, I was on the road for 3-4 months. We got rejected multiple times. As I said, you need one person, one investor out there. So I do think that, the more and more people you talk to, I think hopefully, there'll be more connections and all of that. So I think that is where, at least my 2 cents would be.
Thanks, Pratik. I'm sure anybody is no difficult, but anybody is interested, you can write to Pratik for help and advice.
Absolutely. Please feel free.
Gaurav,
Yes, sir.
you were given independent task to set up a Opalware division from scratch, and that was India's largest and most advanced plants. Just want to know how did it came in the idea that we should start this where only 12 people are there, and your some 5 top learning. What do you suggest which you have faced and which anybody of us starting this kind of plant which should take care of that?
Right. So I think that's a very interesting story. It's a very close to my heart story. Opalware actually came about in the sense that we were looking at P&Ls of different companies, and we saw this company and we said that this is an extremely amazing company. The profits are amazing. The process is difficult to get into. So technology is a challenge. But if we can put money into technology, it cannot be replicated very easily. So we thought that was our biggest, buy-in into the whole idea of starting an Opalware plant. First, the profits were good. Second, technologically challenging. So the barrier to entry is very, very high. So, and scaling up becomes very easy because India as a market for glass crockery is still very tiny. It has a lot of potential to grow in the future. And I feel that's where, I said that, this is a good bet to take because it's a future-proof company. At least for the next 20 years, we don't have to look into it. We can only keep growing. So that was the initial thought why we came into Opalware. Of course, as it was technologically challenging, as Pratik mentioned, we started hiring people and realized that some were not good, some were not performing very well. But we had to do that because it was a completely alien industry for us. It was completely new. If I had even a slight bit of knowledge of this, I wouldn't have probably done that. So a biggest mistake that, so hiring is extremely important. So we kind of corrected that later on in later years, and now we have a much more efficient team. But overall, that was one of the biggest challenge, hiring good people, because very few people are there in that industry. As I said, only 12 plants. So we had to basically poach from different companies, which was the only way to do it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten it started because it is a technically very challenging product. So again, during the COVID times as well, the biggest problem has been running the plant because it's a 24-hour, 365 days plant. It's a continuous process, so cannot stop it. But we couldn't even produce because the entire area was locked down. Our people were not allowed to come into the plant. So we had to basically keep the furnace on hold and just drain the glass. So it was tough times, but it comes at a cost. But it's a fantastic product, and it helped me kind of because I thought it was future proof, and that is the main reason we entered this category.
Thank you so much. Nice to know this. And Dilip bhai, you have always been innovative. आप तो हेलमेट बनाते हो, हेलमेट बनाने के बाद में कोविड में बहुत सारी चीजें बना ली. And can you tell us how fast you could do it and how could you involve other people also doing this? In a brief, can you tell us?
See, once you had an idea of allowing infrastructure to use to somebody else, you become very connected to many more people. So you also get equally good knowledge. As far as COVID products were concerned, what we developed, that was our basically expertise. And to change in-house infrastructure we could bring in. We could develop the product by changing certain things into the modes and all. But however, one thing in this COVID, what we realized, doing synergy can help. However big company you are, if you can get, it was just my attitude to be associated with anybody and everybody. A small industry also have been helped, and vice versa. Whatever, it's like a karma. What you do to somebody, it has to come back to you. And same way, a lot of people also we were also been helped. Somebody coming at night during the lockdown, opening his factory for you, where you have not done business ever before for him. and for the first time, if he's ready to do it. So that's how it was like, because you have been open to go and approach. So that has helped. Gautam, I think everybody's only you have to go and approach someone. There was one example I'll give you. The startup who started, he developed a very simple mask holder. And he was selling for 15 rupees, and then he realized he was through laser cutting and all, he was doing it. So his cost of production was coming up very high. He came to me saying, sir, this is a product, but I will not be able to do so much business. But if you can do this, I said, no, this is your intelligent property. Later on, a lot of people copy it. Fine. I will not copy, because first thing you came to me with open mind, I'll make sure that you like. His product cost was like 5 rupees or something. He was getting it. I got it for him for 1 rupee 50 paisa. So because of his approach, and now he's selling in thousands. He says, I'm selling it more in thousands. I helped him to make the mold. He was a startup. So everything is not business for us. I mean, tomorrow, if you can create one entrepreneur also in your lifetime, I think our life is successful.
Thank you, Dilip. It was great help to the entrepreneur and to the people in the need. Thank you so much. We will have some questions from the audience. Snehal Shah, Shohan, and Kishore Khabia. You can start one by one.
Thank you, Gautam Bhai. Great session and speakers, Dilip Bhai, Pratik ji, and Gaurav. We have our brand Goma. We are into 100% cruelty-free fashion accessories and corporate gifting. So my question is to Gaurav ji and Dilip Bhai, on your say on company-owned showrooms and franchisee-owned showrooms, and also on the distribution network part, which is the best? Yeah, thank you.
See, everything has its own advantages. I mean, your company-owned showroom, not necessarily will be able to manage it, but on a whereas in a dealer showroom, I think that is, it's difficult for me to tell.
Yes.
Depending on your products, depending you creating an availability. But product like yours, I feel franchisee or somebody who can make an exclusive. I mean, it's a stain of franchisee or whatever, it should work for you, because it's a brand and it's a different product, not of many pieces.
Thanks. Can we have a Snehal?
Jai Jinendra, sir. Thank you for this.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Yeah, Jai Jinendra. Good evening to all of you. Thank you for introducing us to the great ideas of the mentors and the program. I have two things to ask. One is just to give a background. I am a company secretary in practice from Mumbai and affiliated with Jito. And second, can we have a list of all the people who have participated and the offerings and connections, so we can build up from this as a part of this program or this session? Because in
yes.
many sessions, sir, we have different people, different ideas, different industries, but it is very helpful. So in these days, there are multiple of programs going on. So it will be great if we have created a database of particular program and can circulate, so at least everybody can network within the group.
Thanks,
like
noted.
Said,
thanks, this is noted.
Stated, we can also assist them with our connections, and we can help that out for our all fraternity members. Thank you.
Thank you, Sneh. Thank you. Next is Ankit Jain. Yes.
Good evening. I'm Ankit Jain from Jito Hubli chapter. My question is to all the distinguished guests. Like, I'm into business of advertisements, and how you look opportunities for advertisements companies, because since last 3 months, all the companies are cutting their budgets. So what are the innovative ways for an advertising company you suggest, so that we can tap the market and we can be part of the market? Because we are finding it difficult to get the customers, and existing companies are not spending money because they have stopped their budgets. Thank you.
Pratik, can you take it?
Yeah, Ankesh, what sort of advertisement do you do?
Ankesh?
You're unmuted.
we are basically into advertisements of BTL activities. But recently, 2 years back, we have started digital marketing also. We have a team of 12 people who are doing digital marketing for automobile industry.
Okay.
But
Okay.
apart from digital, like my main core business is all BTL activities. Like we are specialized in glow sign board manufacturing, LED board manufacturing, all in-shop brandings, and we do all kinds of hoardings and all. Except TV ads, we do all kinds of advertisements. But right now we are finding it very difficult because all companies have stopped their budgets.
Yeah. So Ankesh, obviously, I think offline advertising is going through a tough time, because obviously because of the COVID crisis, I think not many people are venturing outside, number one, and number two, obviously a lot of companies' cash flows are also in not in a good shape. So ideally, if you look at any company, the first thing that they cut whenever there's a issue in the cash flow is actually advertising. So I do think that obviously once the recovery happens, you can obviously get back to where you were in terms of your sales. But I do think that you should also, I think one of the golden periods right now is also digital advertising. I think that is something which has exploded over the last at least last 1 or 2 years. So we do a lot of that digital advertising today, at least at our group level, and things are becoming a lot more expensive today than they were, say, 6 to 8 months ago. So I think the mind share of a customer has gone from, say, offline to completely on the screen. So I do think that any innovation that you can do out there, or any relationships that you can build out there, can really work wonders, especially I think for your customers. So I think that is something. Also, I think a lot of advertising dollars is also going more towards the digital side. So I think that can be a good focus area. I think the good thing what you've done is you've already diversified your business, but maybe if you can focus more at least today, and then hopefully I think we can have companies come back to where they were. I think that can be very fruitful. The other thing I think what I would recommend is also look at sectors where there's, I think, more recovery happening. So for example, consumer durables, I think is one sector which is doing very well. It's all-time high. So if you have customers in that sector or healthcare sector, whatever it is, I think if you focus on those relationships, you can really go out there and add value there. So I think a more sort of customer niche approach combined with a more diversified approach where you can focus more on digital, that can be what I would advise.
Yeah, thanks. Next question to Dilip. Dilip, you are in two-tier city, Belgaum. So I know there's a lot of advantage and a lot of disadvantage. Can you tell us some challenges how you handle it?
I think we have got all advantage only. Disadvantage is not really that much, except for the mindset of the people around you. Or sometimes you feel, because you become a shy businessman, you are always scared if you lose something, you may lose a reputation. But once you are bold to understand, I mean, you have tried doing business, you be a successful or failure. If that attitude comes, everything is there. In fact, we have a fantastic living environment. I mean, just imagine after COVID, people living in 1 or 2 bedroom flat, 10 times more expensive than us. And we kind of lifestyle we have. Now people, it was in the mind of people to be in metros. I think we have got a lot of advantages if our mindset is open and not to be society shy and dare to do business. Because here half the time in small town, the only advantage is they are shy, because tomorrow if I lose out in business, what is going to society talk about? That's the only difference I feel.
Thanks, Dilip bhai. Gaurav, just wanted a few 4 or 5 lines. If somebody wanted to can't build like Cello, but planning to build like a Cello, what is 3 or 4 advice what we would like to give?
I think why not? I think anyone can build company like Cello. It's not it's all in the head. As all the panelists have been saying that you have to have a yes I can kind of an approach, and then everything is easy. So I feel you need to make more mistakes very often, very quickly, to kind of start scaling up quicker. Of course, you need to have a frame for yourself, a time frame, what you want to achieve, and the goal set, and approach it logically in a good way. There's a lot of opportunity today. A lot of budding brands are actually coming up, even in our kind of industry. and they're doing fantastically. So I think there are different ways to grow. Of course, there is stiff competition. I think it's there in every industry right now. But people find innovative ways to kind of break the barriers and build a disruptive product. So I feel anyone can do it. It's just you need the right mindset. You need the right approach, and of course you will fail in a few things. You will make mistakes. So you need to make sure that that doesn't bog you down, because that is a part of doing business in the first sense. If you're not making mistakes, there is something wrong. There is definitely something, because even the best make mistakes. So it's very important to keep making them. And the fourth thing is basically to kind of just be persistent. Perseverance is extremely important. As I said, one of my biggest learning is to be patient and persevere, because something cannot be done overnight. It takes time. But of course, maintaining a goal and a right approach can definitely lead you to the path of success. And a lot of companies now, because bigger companies get very complacent as well. Because we like bigger companies, bigger organizations have they say that we've done everything, we have everything, we can do anything what we want, and that is something that smaller startups can take advantage of and kind of have more disruptive products and keep the end users need in perspective. Because as Pratik also mentioned, and Dilipji also mentioned, that it is very important that you concentrate on fulfilling a need. If you fulfill a need, you are definitely going to be successful, and it will just replicate the numbers. You don't have to then see the numbers. It's just then going to replicate it for itself. So I feel those are the mantras that someone starting off should use.
Thank you. Thanks. We have a very senior member, Kishore Khabia ji. He's a JDF member also. Yes, Kishore ji.
Yes, Pratik ji, Jai Jinendra, Pratik and Gaurav. Pratik, I want to ask you a simple question. You are in a Silicon Valley. In Silicon Valley, they enjoy they celebrate their mistake. They celebrate their failure. This is in Silicon Valley, it's okay. But you look as a person for India, how this will happen, because you both are second generation entrepreneurs. Suppose a young guy, is the first time he's entering in a business and he's going to failure. How things come to his mind and how you can see that point of view. I want to just know from you, Pratik especially.
Thank you, sir. So I think it's you can't really inculcate any ecosystem of innovation if you don't have the capacity to endure failure. I think that is extremely important. The reason why Israel today is the world's most innovative country is because of the capacity for failure is very high. People don't look down upon failure. People see failure as a stepping stone to success. And also in a place like China today, that's also being seen as well. So I do think that, I think it's not only a personal thing, but it's also a societal problem that we have. I think people look down upon failure in a very big way. I think, a lot of society, is also, people care a lot about your grades, how you're doing in business, how you're doing in work. And I think people tend to, which is why a lot of people in India tend to go towards a more safer jobs, because they don't want to see themselves as failures. And I think in order for us as a country to, actually better, we need to incentivize risk-taking behavior. But we can't incentivize risk-taking behavior without changing our behavior about how we see failure. So I do think that failure is extremely important, and and I think capacity, and I think it's also, I think also, our economical, even banking system doesn't really allow it in a big way. So I think overall, I think, it's a mindset of, our parents, mindset of society to not see failure as a bad thing, obviously. And as an entrepreneur, I think, yes, there are different kinds of failures. I wouldn't recommend someone to, fail big. When you want to fail, obviously fail small, fail on the small things. Because obviously that is where you can actually go out there, and improve and all of that. I think failure gives you a lot of feedback for you to improve. The only reason why at least I have made improvements is because of the small failures that I've had in the past, as I mentioned in today's call. And I think that if you don't fail, that means you're not taking enough risk. If you're not taking enough risk, I think you're not really doing a good enough job into whatever you're doing. So I think it's overall, I think, we should ideally, talk to, I think it's more of a societal parents. I think no one should judge you. I think once we have that attitude, I think that is when we can expect a lot more entrepreneurs, a lot of people who are taking more risks and going out there doing more bold stuff.
Yeah, thanks. Can we have Vimal Shah? Vimal bhai?
Hi, Gautamji. Good evening to everyone. I think
always nice to hear you, Vimal bhai.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So, what do you like to say to all the youth today?
I think amazing. The important thing is the mindset of learning every single day, learning from success, learning from failure, and obviously overall making action happen. I mean, changing things around. We're going into a new world going forward. There is a new world. There's a new way of doing things. And I guess what has been talked about online, about fintech, about online, about expansions, I think a lot of people have that. But some people are restrained by saying, I'm in my own cocoon. I can't look at it globally. I think this is a very great platform. And thank you to Jito for creating this whole platform and discussions. I put a note in there to say, if everybody starts talking about needs and leads and we all put it together, I think that's a good proposition where we can connect the world together. So I guess, thank you very much. And I think excellent speakers today. If any of you want to look at Africa and need, any expansion plans over here, get in touch and we shall see what we can do in Africa.
Thank you. Thank you, Vimal bhai.
Thank you.
I would also like to thank Inder, Sanjita, my son Aditya Oswal, who always keep helping me and take my back office. Now we have a vote of thanks by our secretary, Joan. And about him, he's an excellent guy, Parvinji. He started from 0 to 150 new companies in Bangalore. And he started working in 18 years and have 800 people working with him. So Parveen bhai, I request you to please propose vote of thanks. Thank you, speakers. It was handsome and it was great to hear all of you. Because of time, we will like to close now. Yes, Parveen bhai.
Thank you, Gautam ji. Thank you, Dilip ji, Gaurav ji, Pratik ji, and Deepak ji from Chicago and Balwant ji from Singapore. आने के लिए एंड कोई भी वेबिनार होता है तो हमको कुछ ना कुछ टेक अवे लेके जाना पड़ता है. तो आई थिंक बहुत कुछ सीखने को मिला आज. वी शुड नॉट जज अर्ली एंड डिसरप्शन इज द अपॉर्चुनिटी. कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल, इनोवेशन थिंग्स, नेटवर्किंग, हेल्प ईच अदर एंड जैसे अभी बताया प्रतीक का स्मॉल फेल्यूर गिव्स मोर एक्सपीरियंस एंड ऑल दिस थिंग. बहुत कुछ सीखने को मिला. थैंक यू वेरी मच आप सबने टाइम देने के लिए एंड थैंक यू वेरी मच गौतम जी इतना सब वेबिनार अरेंज करने के लिए एंड थैंक यू वेरी मच ओम प्रकाश जी आल्सो जोन चेयरमैन. थैंक यू वेरी मच. थैंक यू ऑल.
Thanks everybody for being a part of this. Thanks to all the guests. Thanks to all the participants. And I hope Pathviraj ji also joined. Thanks Pathviraj ji.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Jai Jinendra, everybody. Thank you.